Shallow depth of field on a full frame camera. Is it an advantage or not? Let's talk a little bit about it. Hello everybody, my name is Attila Mate from Blue Sky Photography, and today I'd like to talk to you about an interesting topic, about the shallow depth of field on a full frame camera. Is it an advantage or not for the photographers? Let's talk a little bit about it. I think that the shallow depth of field on the full frame camera, it is an advantage for the photographers in some situations, but there are plenty of photographers who prefer the APS-C size cameras because the depth of field is a little bit larger with the APS-C size cameras, and actually it is larger by the crop factor. So how is the crop factor? That much larger is the depth of field. So the example, if you have an 85mm f1.4 lens, I would say on a full frame camera, and if you set the camera from the subject at 3 meters, I just say some numbers, but you can calculate this yourself as well. And you set the camera at 3 meters, you set up, and then you just focus on the subject. The depth of field will be 3 centimeter. I would say 3-4 centimeter. If you put the same lens on the APS-C size camera, the depth of field will be 3 centimeter by 1.5. So that will be 4.5 centimeter. So this is how you can understand how the depth of field will change when you put the same lens on the APS-C size camera. Just multiply it with the crop factor, and that's it. But if you want to understand the depth of field and how it is, even for Android smartphones or for tablets, you can find in the Google Play Store, or I'm pretty sure with iOS users, the iPhone users, they will find in the Apple Store, the App Store. You can find some very good apps, depth of field calculators, and then you can just calculate yourself. You just put in the lens details, and what is the aperture you are using, what's the distance from the subject, and then you just calculate yourself, But let's get back to the topic. Is it an advantage or not if you use a full frame camera? Now, I have to tell you that in some situations it is an advantage. If you want to separate your subject from the background, it will be a distinct advantage. But I would say with the APS-C size camera, you can reproduce the same kind of separation like with the full frame. I don't say that the depth of field will be the same. No, the depth of field will be only the same than if you put faster glass on the APS-C size camera. So if you have, let's say, an f2 lens on the full frame camera, then you have to put an f1.4 lens on the APS-C size camera, and then you will have the same shallow depth of field like on a full frame. Or if you have an f1.8, let's say, on the full frame, then you have to put an f1 or f0.95, on the APS-C size, and then you will have the same depth of field, and so on and so on. Obviously, there are some situations when the full frame, let's say with the Canon, it's an example. If you put the Canon 85mm f1.2, then obviously you cannot put such a lens on the APS-C to beat that, to get the same depth of field. But you can use the example, if you want, you can use speed booster, and you do it with manual focus. And if you use speed booster on the APS-C, on the mirrorless, this is only the speed booster will only work with mirrorless. Then you can get again the same depth of field like on the full frame. And the speed boosters, this is a different topic, and I will do a different video about the speed boosters and how to use them. But if you want, you can get the same depth of field and the same separation like on a full frame on the APS-C. That's undeniable. So, but let's talk about if it's an advantage or not. Now, the truth is that in some situations it is an advantage, but The downside of it is that the gear is very expensive. So if you want to buy a good full frame camera and a good full frame lens, you will pay a lot of money. But if you want to buy an APS-C size camera with an APS-C lens, you can buy with half price, probably less than half price. It depends what kind of the camera you choose. So I think that many photographers, they will just blow up this depth of field story, you know, and they say, oh, this is the very, very good advantage and blah, blah, blah. It is an advantage, but it's not as big as they say. And on the other hand, if you are a portrait photographer and they say mostly that portrait photographers, they need full frame camera, that's not true. I am a portrait photographer and event photographer, and if somebody send me a picture which was done on a full frame camera, and whichever lens you want, you know, I will reproduce the separation and the depth of field, you know, the same. So that's not an issue. But it doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter how close I get to the subject. It doesn't. I can manipulate the depth of field very easily from the distance from the subject, and different lenses and different speed boosters and things like this, you know. But if you want, you can reproduce the picture without any difficulty, if you know what to do. So that's a nonsense statement, I would say, that if you are a portrait photographer, you need a full frame camera. No. If you want to buy, that's okay. If you want to spend your money on it, that's okay. That's not an issue. If you want to buy expensive lenses, that's okay. That's not an issue. But that's not the only possibility. So people must know that this is not the only possibility. The only possibility, to say that it's the only possibility, it's a big untrue. It's a big BS. That's not true. So I would say that with an APS-C size camera or with a full frame camera, you can reproduce the same depth of field without any issue. And that's not only with portrait, that's also with events or any other photography. Now, if you are a wildlife photographer or sports photographer, then definitely you want to go on the APS-C. And usually if you see a wildlife photographer, he will have a 6,000, 8,000 euro lens, and he will have a 800 euro APS-C size camera on the lens. Did you ever ask why? That's a good question. Because he needs the depth of field. He needs the depth of field. You can imagine if he's shooting at 3, 4, 500 millimeter, and he's shooting at f2.8. Even f2.8 is too wide open. I mean, he gets no depth of field at all. He needs like f4 or something. So that's why he's going with the APS-C, because with the APS-C, the depth of field will grow up, but the light he will still have. The light advantage will be still there. So let's explain this a little bit in a different way. So if you get a lens, the example, let's say 50 millimeter f1.8, yeah, you get the lens on the full frame. I get a lens, a 50 millimeter f1.2 or a 50 millimeter 0.95 on my APS-C sides. I will have the same depth of field, but in light I will have one stop advantage, because the lens lets more light in, and that's why I get one stop advantage. And I don't even talk about the speed booster, because the speed booster will bring again, but speed boosters you cannot use in wildlife or sports photography, because mostly they are manual focus, and even if it's autofocus, you know, it won't focus as fast as the native lenses. So that's not good for that kind of job. But that's why sports photographers or wildlife photographers, they use APS-C size camera, because they get more depth of field. And on the other side, why they use APS-C size cameras is the pixel density. Now, nobody really likes to talk about pixel density. And I don't know why. I don't have a clue. But this is very important. Pixel density is very important. And I explain to you why. And let's say that you have a full frame sensor, yeah? Now, this is the full frame sensor. So if you have a full frame sensor, 24 megapixel, yeah? If you divide the 24 megapixel to pixel per inch, how much it will be? It will be 500, let's say. I'm just saying a number. You know, this is not not the same, but I don't have a calculator over here, so I don't waste my time. You can calculate yourself. So, but if you have an APS-C size camera, which is 24 megapixel, and you divide pixel per inch, you know, it will be not 500, it will be 700, 800. Because you can imagine a full frame camera, full frame sensor is like this big, and there is 24 million pixels jammed here, but APS-C is like this big, and there is 24 million pixels jammed in there. So obviously the pixel density will be much higher. And because the pixel density is higher, the picture will be sharper, will be better, will be... there is a lot of advantage in that. That's why wildlife and sports photographers, they choose the APS-C. Pixel density and depth of field. These two is very important for them. Now, if you calculate from a 24 megapixel APS-C size camera, what pixel density it has per inch, it will be like a 45. I don't know exactly, but I'm just guessing like that, you know. It will be like a 45 megapixel full frame camera. A 40 megapixel full frame camera will have the same pixel density like a 24 megapixel APS-C. That's the truth. So, full frame depth of field, or is it an advantage or not? I would say this every photographer has to decide himself. But if somebody is saying that for portrait photographers full frame is the only way, that's not true. That's not true at all. I think that who says that is only wants to spread some misinformation, or I don't know, or he's only misinformed. I don't know, but that's not true at all. And if you want to see more, or if you want to understand more about this topic, please leave a comment down below, and I will make a very detailed video then, and I will upload so you can understand better what I'm talking about. And I hope that this video was helpful to you, and I hope that it will help somebody on YouTube. And I wish you a nice day, and see you in the next one. Take care, guys.